Woodside is a neighborhood in Queens. It is bounded by Sunnyside, Astoria, East Elmhurst, Jackson Heights, Elmhurst, and Maspeth. It's marked by a cemetery to the north, a cemetery to the south, and right smack in the middle of it is a Jollibee, a classic moniker that Filipinos are in the area. Welcome to Urban Caffeine. My name is Thea and you're watching a channel that breaks down different neighborhoods in New York City. If you like videos like this, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss future videos. And while you're at it, don't forget to hit that like button. So Jollibee is a famous Filipino fast food chain. Imagine taking KFC and McDonald's and putting them together with rice and sweet spaghetti, and what do you get? Jollibee. That rice and sweet spaghetti on the menu is what makes this chain truly Filipino. And when there's a Jollibee, you're bound to know that Filipinos are in the area. To prove my point, this portion of Woodside is also known as Little Manila because of the Filipino community that has a presence here. It's named after Manila, which is the mega metropolis of the Philippines. This is where you'll find authentic Filipino food, karaoke, and your Filipino supplies at the Philam Market. I recently went to Little Manila ahead of filming this video. That Philam Market is often mentioned in travel guides when covering Woodside. It's pretty small, but it's packed with all the essentials to satisfy Filipino nostalgia. On Patreon, I posted a video on Little Manila and my take on some Filipino food. If you like extra content like this, make sure to check out patreon.com/urbancaffeine. And it's also a way to help out this channel if you become a member. But historically, Woodside was predominantly Irish. However, an Immigration Act passed in 1965 paved the way for many Filipino immigrants to move to this area in the 1970s. The fact that the Irish and the Filipinos were both predominantly Catholic made it easier for the Filipinos to settle here. And speaking of Irish, in 2000, Woodside has been hosting a parade every March called St. Pat's for All. Because since 1990, Irish LGBTQ communities have been trying to march in the annual St. Patrick's Day parade that happens in Manhattan. But they had been consistently denied. This was such a big deal that even the New York City mayor boycotted the Manhattan parade. So in 2000, the Irish LGBTQ communities were like, enough, we're gonna have our own parade. Mic drop. So the Parade for St. Pat's for All was born. The ban was eventually lifted in 2015, so Irish LGBTQ communities can now march in the Manhattan St. Patrick's Day Parade. But the parade in Woodside continues to be celebrated today, although it doesn't occur on St. Patrick's Day itself. My guess is so that it doesn't compete with the Manhattan Parade. I mentioned this event in my March Free Things to Do video, which is a series that I have on YouTube. And if you want to check that out, where I explain the routes for both the Manhattan Parade and the Parade for St. Pat's for All, link is in the description. There are other Asian and Hispanic communities that live in Woodside, but this area is well known to be the Filipino neighborhood in New York City. But why the name? Back in the day, most of Queens was forest and wooded land. For this reason, you have names such as Forest Hills, Fresh Meadows, Ridgewood, and of course, Woodside. They were all named after their natural features before Queens was fully developed. Ridgewood, there was a high ridge. Forest Hills, it had a hilly terrain that was close to Forest Park. Fresh Meadows, you guessed it, there were meadows with fresh green grass and vegetation. And Woodside, it was located next to a woody hill. Gotta say, there's not much creativity with these names. And speaking of features, I mentioned earlier that Woodside is bounded north and south by cemeteries. This really isn't surprising because Queens has a ton of cemeteries. It's hard to find an exact number of just how many cemeteries Queens has, but there's a lot of them. I read this article on how the buried outnumber the living in Queens 2-1. If you think about it, even though population keeps growing, the head count for the dead are compounding. We're talking counting people all the way from the 1800s. Calvary Cemetery alone, that's south of Woodside, has over 3 million buried. That's the largest in the United States. And that's a freak ton of zombies. This is why I do archery. I do archery and abide by
Rule number 1 for surviving Zombieland: cardio.
But knowing my luck, I'll probably go with the first wave. But in the very, very small chance that I survive the first wave, then I have my bow and arrow and I abide by
cardio.
But going back to the cemeteries, Queens has these cemeteries because in the 1800s, Manhattan was getting so dense that at one point, the city had to ban burials south of Canal Street. Density and lack of space was only part of the problem. The other half was the smell of the corpses. But Queens was not yet dense with urban development and still pretty wooded and bucolic. So cemeteries were established here instead. And before public parks became a thing, people would go to cemeteries to picnic and enjoy some green space. Because if you think about it, public cemeteries are clean and neatly manicured, and it's a lot of open space, in contrast to the crammed city. So if you were living in the later half of the 1800s, think of the advantage Woodside had being next to a large cemetery. Today, we have public parks that provide green space for play and relaxation. Today, people still visit cemeteries. It's another option for a peaceful walk, fresh air, and open space. Via public transit, you can get from Woodside to Midtown Manhattan in about 30 minutes. That's why it's an affordable option to live in compared to places closer to Manhattan like Long Island City. Woodside is serviced by the 7 and the E, M, and R subway lines, and the Long Island Railroad. A notable station is the Woodside Station since it services both the LIRR and the 7 train, and the Q70, which is a shuttle bus to LaGuardia Airport. The best part is that the Q70 happens to be free. More information on traveling to LaGuardia Airport can be found in this video. The LIRR from Woodside has options to take you to Penn Station or Grand Central in Manhattan, or Citi Field and Flushing in Queens via the Port Washington line, or to Jamaica Station where you can transfer to all the other LIRR lines heading into Long Island. Check out this video on how to travel on the Long Island Railroad. Link is in the description. The neighborhood itself, like most of Queens, is made up of medium-density housing like row houses, unlike the tall skyscrapers in Manhattan. But Woodside's density makes it a walkable neighborhood. This means that people can get around easily and get their daily essentials by just walking. A 10-minute walking radius looks like this. So if the 7 train is not running, a walk from Jollibee to the other train lines is about a 10-minute walk. You'll notice that the majority of businesses are near public transportation, like Roosevelt Avenue along the 7 train. If you've seen my video on Jackson Heights or my video on Newark Avenue in New Jersey, you'd know that this is pretty common for New York City. Public transit brings in foot traffic, and with foot traffic comes business opportunities. All in all, New York is pretty diverse. You've got communities of all sorts. You can find a little India, a little Colombia, and in this video, a little Manila. And not only that, a good amount of New York City is walkable, not just Manhattan. I featured other neighborhoods in this channel like Astoria and Jackson Heights, and I plan to cover more areas in Brooklyn and Queens. So if you want more videos like this, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you won't miss these videos. Also, feel free to share this video with someone you know, because as I've always said, sharing is caring. And if you want to help out this channel beyond just subscribing, hop on over to Patreon while I share extra content. Until next time, thank you all so much for watching and happy New Yorking.